will help him get through more questions. So thank you again for coming, and I'll hand it over to the representative.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. How many of you have been to one of my town halls before? So quite a few of you. So I've been doing town halls since I've been in Congress, and very regularly, and I've always encouraged more people to attend, so it's nice to see more and more people attending. We didn't always get the same level of media coverage. That's also nice to have media covering it as well. But I want to encourage more people to attend. If you have friends and family, please let them know about these town halls. Let them know that everyone is welcome here. I want to hear from the entire community. It's a big district. It goes from Kent County down to Calhoun County. For scheduling reasons this week, we had to do it at noon. That's probably more convenient for some of you and less convenient for others. But we will do other town halls here. I will be back, and we will have town halls in the evenings, maybe on weekends, to try to accommodate as many people as possible, because I want people to be able to come to these town halls regardless of what their schedule is. And I know different people have different schedules, so it's nice to see a big crowd here today, but we'll be back for those who couldn't make it today. So please let your friends and family and neighbors know that we will be back soon. And in fact, we do have a town hall in Hastings, which is not too far from here. We have a town hall in Hastings on Saturday. So if you know people who couldn't make it to this one and maybe could make it to the Hastings Town Hall, that would also be something to let them know about. So I'll talk a little bit about some of my concerns right now. There's not a whole lot to update about Washington, like particular legislation. I'm talking about particular legislation that's passed. Most of the legislation that's been going through is Congressional Review Act legislation, where we are looking at regulations that passed toward the end of the previous administration and reviewing those pieces of those regulations through pieces of legislation. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the concerns I see throughout our country. I think the level of partisanship we're seeing now is the highest that I've ever seen. And I think it's great that people are really involved and really concerned and call to action. I think that's great. But I look at Twitter and I look at some of the comments you see online, and the rhetoric from both sides has gotten way out of line. And I think we have to find ways to work together, to be critical of our government and our government officials, make sure that you're holding them accountable. But we have to find ways to be respectful toward each other. The comments I see on Twitter from both sides are way out of bounds. And often I see it from people on the right toward me, even worse than people on the left toward me. So it cuts both ways. And it's really disheartening, This week was George Washington's birthday, and we celebrated it. Some people call it President's Day. I still refer to it as George Washington's birthday. And when George Washington gave his farewell address, he warned about the sort of partisanship that we're facing right now. That people would be divided into factions, and that you'd actually end up with a country that's easier to manipulate, because people become so partisan that they will fall for one person or another, or one side or another, without thinking critically about things. And we have to be really careful about that. My parents came here as immigrants. To give you a little bit of my background. My dad is a Palestinian refugee, and my mom is a Syrian immigrant. Both of them would have been banned from coming here So my parents came here as immigrants, and they came here for an opportunity to start a new life. You know, my dad, as a refugee, was very, very poor. Had absolutely nothing. I mean, he was poor for a Palestinian, which is really poor. And they started a new life here. And when I was a kid, my dad would tell us how great this country is. How you can come to this country and become successful. That doesn't mean you become wealthy, but you could provide for your family and make it without having to know particular people in government or have the right last name or have the right ethnic background or the right religious background. You could succeed here just through your own hard work because people had an opportunity here. And that really had a lasting impression on me, what my dad told me as a kid. And one of the reasons I got into politics, probably the main reason, is because I saw the two parties going astray, and I thought we needed someone with an independent voice. Someone who would uphold the Constitution and try to uphold those principles that have made America so great. And that's why when I'm in Congress, when I've been in the State House, I am such a stickler about the Constitution, about protecting people's rights, about the rule of law, about equal protection, because of that upbringing, because of what I feel about this country. And it can be disconcerting to people on both sides, because when President Obama was in office, I was frequently critical of him for a number of things that happened. The unconstitutional war in Libya, his indefinite detention policies, the NSA surveillance policies. And now that President Trump is in office, I'm also critical of him for a number of things. And I'm sure I will continue to be. But I believe very strongly in sticking to the Constitution, upholding the rule of law, defending liberty. And it doesn't matter to me whether you have a Republican in the White House or a Democrat in the White House, who's in charge of government. I'm going to do that. So I want you to know that that's my commitment. I think you will see it through my actions, through my votes, through my words. But I want you to know that I am dedicated to that, and that I will stand up for you. I will learn from you. We're not always going to agree. I'm sure you'll find at many points during this town hall, many of us will not agree. And that's okay. Because if we all agree, then we all be the same person. Right? We're all different people. So there's no way for all of us to agree. But that's not how our system of government works. It's supposed to be a representative system, and we're supposed to hear everyone out. And I then have to go use my judgment about what I think is in the best interests of our district and the best interests of the country. And I'm committed to doing that. So I want to thank you. That's basically what I'm going to say in my intro, and I will open it up to questions. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Give her the mic.
I'll repeat what you said.
Okay, well, I'm an ex-teacher. So I was first praising Representative Amash for his comments after President Trump attacked John Lewis, that when he said, dude, just stop, that gave me hope that we had to I also want
bosses is here, he knows that I'll never give it back. No, I'm just kidding. That once you know, will you please let the people know? Because we all have a right to know how something was impacted that is so critical to the importance of this country. And so please tell us.
So, yes, I will let you know. I don't know what will be classified and what won't be classified, so I'm not permitted to reveal classified information. But I will obviously take great diligence and explain to the district what I know to the extent I am informed of anything. So I think it is important that we. I think. Yes, I know what committee I'm on. Yes. We need to ask questions one at a time. So I will do my best to get to the bottom of it, to find out about both the allegations and the leaks. I've talked about both. I think that both are concerning in different ways. But you know, you have some Republicans who are only concerned about the leak aspect, and you have some Democrats who are only concerned about the allegations. I think we need to look at the whole thing. And yeah, I do think that's hypocritical. The question is whether it's hypocritical for President Trump to support leaks during the campaign, but then now to be concerned about them. Yes, it is hypocritical. I think that we should be consistent with our concerns. We should be consistent with our concerns. So, and let's all please be respectful of each other. Yes, sir. We'll go one at a time. Yes, go ahead.
All I want to say is we need a special committee to look into this Russian issue.
So the first step is to let the intelligence committees look at it. That is absolutely the first step. But if a special committee is warranted, I would support that.
Good.
Yes, yeah, I'll ask you. Yes.
I'm a small business owner in your district. I live in Ada. Give me
I just don't want the mic. Yeah.
Just don't want the mic all over his
Thank
face.
you for taking my question. I'm a small business owner in your district, in Ada, and right after 2009, I lost my job, started my business the next day. I priced healthcare for my family. It was $2,000 a month. When the ACA went into effect, my healthcare bill dropped to $500.
Yeah!
I want to keep my business open, but if you vote to get rid of the ACA, I will close my business, and I don't want to do that. Can you address how you're going to protect my business?
To all be respectful, please. So, I understand your concerns, and I know that a lot of people have been helped by the ACA. I know that. I don't deny that. A lot of other people in the community have been hurt by it as well.
Who? Tell us who!
The people being hurt are your neighbors. So I represent more than 700,000 people. I that we get just as many people who are concerned about the ACA hurting them as we get about people saying,
Anybody here?
I assure you. So what I want to make, I understand. What I want to make sure we do is have a smooth transition. A smooth transition.
How?
So we'll all. So the ACA,
You guys tried to repeal it over 50 times. And you got 50 times you never had a
we have to have respect for discourse. We have to take turns one at a time so I can answer the question. So when the ACA was put in place, it was phased in over a long period of time. It didn't just pop into place overnight. Similarly, we would have a transition so that states would have an opportunity to put in place a plan, or alternatively, you would have a transition like the Rand Paul bill in the Senate, which would still cover people. It would cover the people who are currently covered, and it would expand the use of HSAs, and it would provide, but it would allow you to have HSAs, and it would allow you to get, you would receive a tax credit as well every year.
Not enough. It's not enough.
Yes.
If that plan is so good, will you be enrolling in that plan?
Amen! Yeah!
Presumably I would. I'm currently enrolled in an ACA exchange.
And we pay for it!
I have an exchange plan right now. So, presumably I would. But I don't know the answer to that.
You're welcome!
The problem with the ACA is that it doesn't reduce the cost of healthcare. So,
Ask the
it
doctors.
doesn't reduce the overall cost of healthcare. The cost of, yes, it did. I understand that. It doesn't reduce the overall cost of healthcare. The problem we're facing in this country is that the overall cost of healthcare is going up. What the ACA did, the ACA essentially established a system of financing so that
Ask the doctors how rich they're getting off it. They're not.
Big insurance companies could receive payments in exchange for covering more people with insurance, which is essentially a financing system but does not control the cost of healthcare. It doesn't reduce the overall cost of healthcare. So we have to address that problem in order to keep healthcare costs down. So I understand that it helped you. I don't deny that. I understand that. And I understand there are other people who are helped by it. But the overall cost of healthcare is going up, and that is a problem for our country in the long run.
Why not access profit?
So we do need to address the cost. Absolutely. So you have to address
Insurance
the
companies
cost
have
by
all-time high
by
profits.
aligning
Regulate them.
costs and benefits better. Right now, what happens is you have a third-party payer system.
Healthcare companies are making record profits. Is anybody monitoring that?
So we all have
Record
to
profits.
take turns here. But they're making record profits because of the ACA. So there is because of the ACA, there's less competition in insurance. There's less competition now. So the large insurance companies are making out better now than they were before. So the way to address this is to address the overall cost of healthcare. The problem is the third-party payer system, where doctors and patients don't know the cost of healthcare. They don't know. So you have, there's a knowledge problem here that has to be addressed. And one way to address that is through things like HSAs, so that people know what the money is being spent on. There's a way to provide the same level of transparency, of course, but there's a way to provide the same level of benefits while making sure that the marketplace is more competitive. Because at the end of the day, what you really want, what everyone really wants, is for healthcare costs to go down. So
No, I just really want affordable coverage.
More affordable healthcare. That's the key. Because the ACA is simply a financing system, it's just masking the cost of healthcare to a number of people. Some of you in this room are seeing lower premiums, but that doesn't mean that healthcare costs have gone down. The costs have gone up.
So why not
So
address that problem?
we do need to address that problem. We need to address that problem. I'm confident there are certain elements of ACA that will continue. So for example, well, first of all, I would leave it to the states to do that, and they can decide for themselves.
Are you kidding me? We don't even have clean water!
But in, for example, the Rand Paul's plan, he would allow people with pre-existing conditions to continue to receive coverage, provided that there is no gap in the next 2 years. So they continue their coverage.
That doesn't work if they miss a payment.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to go to the next question. So, yes, sir. Oh, yes, yes.
What? What are you afraid of, Justin? Just give her the mic. There you go.
Okay, in case y'all didn't. I'm going to the question I asked is what is going to be he or anybody else going to do to protect my rights as a woman, because that's what I am.
My job is to uphold the Constitution. I'm committed to protecting equal protection of everyone under the law, and that means you and everyone else in this room.
It just brought back the transgender laws yesterday.
First of all, the executive order, there were 2 executive orders that the Obama administration had related to transgender individuals. And the one that yesterday the Trump administration rolled back was only related to schools. It was not related to federal contractors. So
It's a policy, Justin!
this doesn't mean that people should be discriminated against or should not receive equal protection under the law. It simply means that the schools and states can make determinations about the details of how to handle these things with the particular individuals in the school. I know you. I'm not. I didn't say I was. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't speak for the other Republicans on this issue. I mean, when the Maloney amendment came up, I'm guessing you followed that, right? I don't know, in Congress. So, I voted yes along with many of my Democratic colleagues on that. So, you know, I don't believe there should be discrimination under the law.
Yeah, but in the schools, the young kids and preteens have a much higher suicide rate because of the way they're treated in school.
Yep. nobody should be bullied, and schools should have policies in place to address that, and everyone should be treated equally under the law. The issue with the guidelines were that they were too specific in telling schools exactly how to handle it, and I think that the schools can address these things with the individuals who are concerned in the school. So, yeah, I'm going to move to the next person. Well, since you're here, I guess.
I got to go back to the health issue. We as American citizens, why can't we have the same type of health benefits as you have in Congress? You don't have a problem. That's always a problem. And 20 years ago, I was fighting for the same thing because of the insurance companies. Insurance companies do have a lot to say about the premiums and what's going up. And stuff with medicine costs and just like that EpiPen went up to $2,000, $60.
So I agree with you. I think that members of Congress and the general public should have the same system in place. I don't disagree with that. And to be clear, I actually get my health insurance from the DC exchange, which is frankly not all that convenient because I go to doctors here in Michigan. So I have to buy a national policy so that I can have it applied to my doctor here. But I am on the DC exchange. I think that there should be a difference and nobody should be treated any differently. Okay, if it's brief. I don't want everyone to just throw my
My comment is simply this, is that our constituency and our country needs to understand a number of things. The current ACA as it is financially unfeasible. It has to be changed, whether you like it or not. You can do anything. I'm making a comment. There it is not a question. It is my right to make a comment when you are stepping on my rights. Now, the other thing we have to understand is that we have great many people in this country, not just 1/2 of 1% that all this noise is going on about. We are Americans first and foremost. As Congressman, what can we do to help get the pharmaceutical costs of our government under control? The costs that are being charged to Veterans Administration, various government agencies. We have got to be one of the largest, I would say, single purchaser of pharmaceutical drugs with the Department of Defense and such. What can we do to start negotiating, bringing those prices down so that we can get the same quality of medications that we get in this country?
So thanks. So first, I want to be clear. I think that forums like this are very American, not un-American. So I want to make sure that's clear. And it's fine to have disagreements and all that. Just as long as we have to be respectful to each other. I think that's really important. I think that's a difficult one to answer. How do we get pharmaceutical costs down? Because the pharmaceutical companies essentially use the payments in this country to subsidize other countries. And why they do that, I don't know. I think because the research is done here. Maybe someone who's more expert in this area could answer that question. But it's relevant to this question.
Both the VA and TRICARE, the military health system, negotiate drug prices.
Right.
My understanding is that Republicans did not allow Part D probably 20 or 30 different instances of unbelievable fraud by providers, doctors, hospitals, podiatrists, lab people. And every time we turn that into the Department of Justice to be prosecuted as fraud against the system, I see a hand going down there. Yeah. They told me very bluntly that they could spend 2 years prosecuting these people, spend a lot of money, and then the lobbyists would come to Congress and say, leave us alone, or we're going to cut your funding for Medicare and Medicaid. And that's exactly what had happened. And many times this has happened. So the system is broke. The medical system in this country is broke. The reason it is broke is because we have people that are gaming the system. As we used to call it Medicare, there's too many pigs in the trough. They're all feeding, they're all trying to make a lot of money, and they're all ripping off the government. And we're paying the price for it, and for people from Congress to come to us and say, oh, by the way, your costs have to go up, and your services have to go down because we can't afford it, when they've done nothing about the fraud, waste, and abuse in this system.
To be clear, I'm not saying that your costs have to go up and your service has to go down. I think that there is a better way to handle healthcare, and we need to make sure that we are reducing healthcare costs, not just shifting around the burden while healthcare costs rise. So, yeah, let me.
You haven't addressed the fraud that he asked.
All right, I'll
Our U.S. District Attorney addressed the fraud, Representative Amash.
Okay, yes, I have
He did.
questions, and I know you won't be able to answer them. And I did drive an hour and 20 minutes to get here. I'm from the Grant area, and I just recently retired, so I do have time to work on campaigns and so on. And it's kind of, Trump has inspired me in a negative way. How the Republican Party stay where it needs to be, and not get Trumpland with a lot of extra spending and details like that and so on. So, but another issue that I have, one was addressed earlier in terms of doing a division between Democrats and Republicans, like no time before. An independent investigation in terms of this Russia thing would help that a long way, rather than if Republicans, especially people like Trump, and we only deal with it there. And I'm a Republican, I was just talking about it. But it's still not going to be trusted. It's not going to be trusted. It really needs to be an independent. It's too big. The Congressional Review Act, referred to in the beginning, called CRA, is really, in my opinion, a blunt instrument that allows Congress to nullify important protections to our air, water, and public health. Safeguards. In the follow-up to that, are you going to oppose bills to eliminate the EPA or slash their budget? We've destroyed the Congress. We've never been a national operation now without the proper controls for those pipes. If we don't have somebody watching these people putting these pipes down underwater, we're in trouble.
On an individual basis, they're within Congress's power to decide how we handle regulations, and so we have a new Congress, and we have the authority to determine whether we continue with a regulation or don't continue with a regulation. We have a constitutional republic. Republicans have the ability to change some of these things, and that's the way our system works. So I will look at them on an individual basis. I have not proposed eliminating the EPA. I do think that the EPA does.
And why did you approve?
I do think that the EPA overreaches in many areas, particularly with respect to our farmers and some some of our local environmental issues, streams and ponds, and other things that are local in nature. So the EPA should be used to deal with environmental issues that are broad in scope, that cover, they go across state boundaries, or maybe along the coastline. So we need to use the EPA appropriately and allow local control over certain other environmental issues. So, yes, ma'am.
Many people in Michigan, including myself, have already become ill from wireless technology, including new electronic, sometimes called smart public utility meters. In fact, there's a bill in the State House, House Bill 4220, that will allow public utility customers the choice to keep an analog meter without having to pay extra to do so, which means there's growing public and political interest in this topic. S19, the Mobile Now Act, and HRS 53, which has a long name, expressing the sense of the House representatives that in order to continue aggressive growth in the nation's telecommunications and technology industries, the United States government should, quote, get out of the way and stay out of the way, unquote. These two, S19 and HRS 53, will both enable telecommunication companies to continue rapid deployment of wireless technology infrastructure that has not been proven safe and has in fact been making some very sick. There's a growing epidemic of illness from wireless technology that is in the most part being ignored. S19 and HRS 53 will further ignore this growing epidemic. Please tell me.
So these are congressional bills or state? Okay. So I haven't heard of those before. I don't know whether the wireless technology has any confirmed effects on health or well-being. I haven't seen any such studies suggesting that. But I'm a big believer in choice and people making decisions. And if people want to make decisions about what kind of meter they have, that's up to them.
In the history of humankind, we're in Michigan have over 2 million smart meters been installed on people's homes. And that is why people are getting sick now. They were getting sick 20 years ago when all of these weren't installed.
So I'm for people having more choices about what they have installed in their homes, but I'm not convinced that they're making people sick. I just don't have any evidence of that. So, yes. Yes, sir. In the middle. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you first off for having the town hall, because a lot of representatives are not. So I know it's not easy. Having said that, you voted recently to remove a regulation that would have kept guns out of the hands of 75,000 mentally ill people. I know that bill was not perfect. Okay, I know all the complaints about that bill. I've educated myself on that bill, but here again we have a repeal of something that was in place to keep people safe, and there is no offered alternative. With that said, what ideas might you have for sensible gun reform? 2,500 children a year, 8 a day, are killed by guns. We have mass shootings. I'm raising 2 boys in this mass shooting era of the United States, and it's pretty darn scary. Even after Orlando sets the record for the most people killed in one city, nothing can be done. So I don't think it's above common sense to say that a Republican can stand up for common sense gun reform and should not fear the 5 million people of the NRA, but should stand for the light for the rest of us.
With respect to the regulation you're talking about, that was, again, an Obama-era regulation that said that people who have... allow us to review regulations that were passed in the previous Congress. So it was a previous regulation, and it basically said that people who have someone helping them with their finances, in other words, like a caretaker helping them with their finances, would not be permitted to buy a gun, which is like treating someone who has help with their finances as though they are mentally ill, and I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right to treat sometimes older Americans who might have someone else helping them with their finances. I don't think it's right to automatically treat them as mentally ill. So I want to be clear about that point. And I believe that I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. I don't believe we should have additional regulations at the federal level. So, I did answer the question. At the federal level, I don't believe we need additional regulations.
When he was in the state, he said the opposite.
Existing laws, but I don't think we need additional laws. And gun crimes have consistently gone down over the years, consistently over the past 20 years. We're at one of the lowest points over the past 2 decades.
Can we do better?
Alternative facts!
I too want to thank you for coming. This is really hard to step into. So a lot of your colleagues have not come, and we appreciate it. My name is Jackie Campbell. I'm not an agitator here for that reason. I've lived here all my life. I work here. I work in a hospital, in the local hospital, as an ER nurse. I've been there since 1997. So all of these topics I see in the ER. That's where your most vulnerable population is. But I'm here. I'm here to talk about immigration, and I will keep it brief. But I don't know that we have any undocumented immigrants here, probably because they're out working, and because they're probably really scared to show up here. So, with all the problems that we have in our community, which I see in the ER every day, lack of health care for thousands, homelessness and a lack of viable solution, daily heroin and opioid overdoses, gun violence, I'm really, really saddened and angry that the focus today is on going after undocumented immigrants. The name we have here of channeling the popular resentment brought out by this election to me, is cruel and disgusting. It is, however, understandable for what is a better scapegoat for society's woes, which we have many of them, and for all of our problems, than to blame it on those without any defense, with no voice, and anyone who can't defend themselves. So we're attacking the most vulnerable, okay, which is nothing new. I really am close to being done. I know, okay. So the undocumented here in Battle Creek, they're our friends, they're our neighbors, they go to our schools. How many of you have had your lawn landscaped by an undocumented immigrant? They're working in our restaurants, they're building our homes. All right. My question is, I want to know, I don't want this to turn into our local law enforcement pursuing and terrorizing these people without any reason, okay? The recent executive orders and the provisions that have been handed down by the Department of Homeland Security have given law enforcement, have given ICE, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous, okay? I'm coming to my question. They want to empower local sheriffs and local police departments to be deputized, to be able to go after these people, okay? And that is just not right. I want our resources in our community to be used for things that we really have a problem with. I don't think we have a problem with the undocumented.
All right!
My question is, will you take action here in Battle Creek before you leave to encourage our Sheriff's Department and our Battle Creek Police Department to not be going after these people? Because right now, if they are deputized, just if they believe that they have a reason to stop them and to pick them up, if they can do that, and why should we be going after these people?
Because they need to go.
Thanks for your comments and for your question. I think we need to improve our immigration system. I've always been a believer in improving our immigration system. I don't think people should be coming here illegally. My parents are immigrants, as I said. My mom is a Syrian immigrant. My dad is a Palestinian refugee. They came here legally, and I think it's important that we encourage that. With that said, we should protect the rights of people. I do think there's an appropriate way to handle these things and an inappropriate way. I don't think it's appropriate for the federal government or local governments to go house to house without warrants searching for people who are undocumented, because we have a constitution and people's rights have to be protected. Americans' rights have to be protected. You can't come into my house without a warrant, and I don't think anyone else should let anyone into their house without a warrant. So we have to protect people's rights, and we have to remember that the 14th Amendment applies to all persons in the United States. It says person. The Constitution is, and this is something that I think a lot of times both sides miss the details in the Constitution. The Constitution uses the word citizens where it means citizens. It uses the word persons where it means persons. And the Equal Protection Clause applies to persons. So we have to it doesn't apply to persons outside the U.S. or outside the states, but it does apply within the United States. So we need to remember that and make sure that we are complying with the Constitution with whatever we do. But with that said, I do think people need to be here legally, and we should have a system to try to allow people who are here legally to become legal over time.
Persons who are already here, how are you going to help protect their constitutional rights?
Well, so as I said, I don't believe in violating the 4th Amendment. I don't believe in violating the 14th Amendment. I believe that those things should be, sir, please. We should protect the rights of the people in this country. And so I am for enforcing the Constitution and protecting people's rights. I don't believe that, local law enforcement should ignore federal laws, but if a federal law violates the Constitution, then that's a different story. So, yeah, I mean, that's been my consistent position. I've taken a position, you may have noticed in the newspaper, I've taken positions that my party doesn't always agree with on a number of constitutional issues, and will continue to do so, because my goal is to support and defend the Constitution. That means the Second Amendment, it means the First Amendment, it means the Fourth Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. I will support and defend the Constitution. Yeah, very short.
What about these electoral vote changes?
Yeah.
They've been talking about it for years, and no one has made it.
Electoral college. I like our electoral college. I think it's a good system. Our country is a federation of states. That's how our country was designed. It was designed as a federation of states. And so when you have a presidential election, what you're doing is allowing the states to vote. The states are voting. It's not individuals voting. You're voting within your state to tell your state how to vote for president. So that's how our system works, and it protects smaller states. The reason the framers of the Constitution designed it that way is because they didn't want a large state, California, New York, or some of the other large states, to dominate the process. Because otherwise what you'd have is a president who just cares about those areas. You have a president who, during the campaign or even during office, just goes up and down the east and west coast looking for votes and handing them favors handing out special favors to different communities along the East and West Coast, knowing that that's where you get the majority of the votes. So we have an electoral college system to protect the people in other states, in smaller states. Yes?
Had voted for Clinton to come in. Where is the justice in that? The electoral takes care of these things.
So, I don't think anyone should have voted for either one of them, but having said that, I understand that Hillary Clinton got more popular vote. I understand that. Nobody denies that. But that's not how our system works. Our system is designed to protect small states. We have to. But in the House of Representatives, the big states have a huge advantage. So we have, our system is designed with a lot of, if you go and read the Federalist Papers, which I encourage people to do, to read how this country was designed, how our government was designed, you'll find that it's actually a brilliant design. It's a brilliant design. It is better than what we have in other countries. And I would, having come from an immigrant family, I can tell you, based on my parents' experience, the horrors of living in many other countries in this world. We have a very good country here with a good system. And I understand we have these disagreements, especially after this election, it seems, where we have lots of disagreements and people concerned and upset. But we have a good system. And we shouldn't allow our fighting to push us away from this system that we have. We don't want to become like Europe. Europe has both a rise in socialism and nationalism. Both are dangerous ideologies that we don't want. We don't want. When you see the tensions in Europe, it's because the right and left in Europe have gone on these tangents, and I'm afraid we're headed in that direction as a country. We need to be wary of.
We're there.
Wary of that on both sides. That Democrats don't move more toward socialism, and Republicans don't move more toward nationalism. Those are dangerous. Those are both ideologies that can be very dangerous for our country in the long run. And they will lead to tension. They will lead to less assimilation. You'll have people grouping themselves into separate communities and not integrating. That's not the kind of system we want. We want a system where people trust each other, can communicate with each other, can work together, can live together. In a lot of other countries, the level of trust is very low, very low. And we have a much higher level of trust of our neighbors than other countries do. No, our system is good for Americans. It's good for Americans. It is a system. All right, I'm going to go on to the next topic. Yes, ma'am. Yes. You look happy. This is probably going to be the doozy question. certain regulations should happen on the state level, but there are other ones that should happen at the federal level.
Can you give
And I would
examples?
support that.
Like what?
Endangered species act. What about the air? The unpredictable air.
Let me,
Can I just ask you a question? Why would you vote no on the waiver for general ed?
The waiver for what?
So I voted no on the waiver for general medicine. So I like general medicine. I don't have any issues with him. General medicine. There had to be a waiver to be from Secretary of Defense, and I voted no. I was the only Republican who voted no. And not because I don't like general medicine, okay, but
The rules exist
it goes
for a
back to my
reason.
strong belief in the rule of law. When you have a law in place that says that someone has to be 7 years out of the service before they can serve as Secretary of Defense, that law should be followed. If it's not going to be followed, then it should be changed for everyone. It shouldn't be a one-time exception. When you have one-time exceptions, you violate the rule of law. I mean, there is no law in a country that makes one-time exceptions. It's arbitrary rule. And so it's a principle that I feel very strongly about, defending the rule of law, and that's why I voted no. I'm sure he's an able man and will do a good job, at least I hope. But it wasn't an objection to him.
Yeah, we all
personally.
hope.
It was just an objection to making a one-time exception like that. So, thanks.
Well, thank you very much for coming today. It's been a wonderful event so far. Two quick things. One, I've heard about elimination of the Department of Education. Good schools, good educated children in this country, otherwise we won't have them. And two, as far as ICE goes, why do they continue to go after individuals and not corporations to exploit them? Start prosecuting employers.
Yes. Yes.
So employers should not knowingly hire someone who's violating the law. So I do think that federal immigration law should go after those employers who are not complying with the law. As for the Department of Education, there are two departments of education. There's the U.S. Department of Education and Michigan Department of Education. I don't support the U.S. Department of Education. I think it is harmful to public education. It is harmful to our students. What ends up happening is your money goes to the federal government. It gets tied up in a bureaucracy with people who are making a lot more than teachers are making. And then they put strings on it and send a portion of it back to you, which is not helpful to our state. And in the state of Michigan, in fact, there's only a small percentage of our funds that even come from the federal government. It's something like 10% of our funds. So most of the funds are coming from the state of Michigan already. But when they put these strings, they put the strings on the whole, obviously the whole school system has to change based on these strings. So you still would have a role for the federal government. The federal government still has to enforce the Constitution. If there are equal protection issues, due process issues, other issues related to our students, the federal government should still enforce those, and you could have the Department of Justice enforce those things. You don't have to have the U.S. Department of Education enforce those issues. And beyond that, the Department of Education is not one of the items enumerated in the Constitution, the U.S. Department of Education. Education issues are not the purview of the federal government. These are items that are better left to the individual states. And the framers of the Constitution understood that, and that's why they designed it that way. Yes, in the back there, yeah.
Earlier you mentioned that one of your...
My question was, I know we've talked about how for some cases, the ACA
have extraordinarily high deductibles along with high premiums under the ACA. So the only way to address the rising deductibles is to have a healthcare system that is more competitive, where costs come down. You can't have fewer and fewer insurance companies like we have currently, and you can't have a system that is just about financing, how do you finance and essentially redistribute funds through subsidies and other things. You have to have a system that actually brings the cost of healthcare down. So at the end of the day, when you go, there may be some things that with an HSA you pay out of pocket, but the cost of these items will be much lower with an HSA system or with a system that moves away from a third-party payer system than current prices. So you want the prices to become more competitive and for healthcare to be reduced in cost. So it's possible. I can't tell you about a specific surgery. But it is possible you pay out of pocket for some things that you didn't pay out of pocket for now. But the price would come down. And so you would have better overall health care when you look at all of your costs.
So are you advocating any kind of lower deductible or higher premium plan entirely?
I would allow more plans. So if someone wants to do a low deductible, high premium plan, they can do that. If someone wants to do a high deductible, low premium plan, they can do that. If someone wants to have very minimal coverage, they can do that. The only way to bring the healthcare costs down is to allow for more options and more competition. If you restrict the number of options, what you essentially create is no competition in the marketplace. You lose insurance companies, and then they can jack up the prices on it. So to be clear, it wasn't good before the ACA. Before the ACA, we had problems too. So the problem is that the ACA did not resolve the main problem. The ACA found a way to finance insurance companies to provide additional coverage, but it didn't find a way to actually decrease the cost of health care, and that's what we need to address.
You can do that without eliminating it.
Thank you. Simple. I have two questions for you today. And you've addressed them quite a bit already. So I just wanted to recap. My first question today, I was here to speak on behalf of the bar. As you know, Donald Trump has made some outrageous claims about his beliefs on global warming, that it's a scam run by the Chinese. He rejects the overwhelming science about global warming. That puts our country at risk and puts us at we have costs. You had mentioned that you have not proposed eliminating any of our environmental agencies. I know you haven't proposed it, but what I'm asking you is, can we count on your support to resist Donald Trump's attempt to eliminate? This is my second question. So when you came in, you had mentioned that you had asked for briefings, intelligence briefings for Congress. One of your colleagues, Representative Jerry Mayfield, also introduced a similar bill, Resolution 111. I have it here if you need it. What his bill calls for is a demand that the Department of Justice turn over all information regarding conflicts of interest Donald Trump may have had. That resolution will by force have to come to the floor for a vote. I would ask you to consider signing on to his resolution and supporting that. I believe it has more strength at getting information out of Donald Trump than what yours was. So those are my two questions. Oh, one more thing. I want to thank you too for coming here. These are not easy things to do.
With respect to Jerry Nadler's resolution, I will definitely certainly take a look at it and consider it. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what it says. I have worked with Jerry Nadler, Democrat, on a number of issues related to civil liberties and other protections of people's rights. So yeah, you got a comment. So I'll take a look at it and give it full consideration. As for President Trump, I'm going to agree with him sometimes and disagree with him other times, and I don't agree with him about it being a Chinese hoax or anything like that. I do think that there is climate change. The question is, to what extent is it human caused, and to what extent we should
February and it's 60 degrees.
Versus the effect it has on our economy. Because when you weaken an economy, you also hurt the environment. So you have to think about both aspects. One of the reasons we have a better environment than a country like China is because we have a stronger economy. And the wealthier your country, the more you have the ability to use clean technology. And the more you develop clean technology, it's technology that will protect our environment longer. So we need to make sure that we continue to develop technology. I mean, one good example is the refrigerator, which was invented at some point, which helped keep things from spoiling, which actually helped our environment in a major way by reducing the demand on resources for farmers and ranchers. So we have developed technologies over time that I think are not well enough appreciated by society because we sort of miss them. They just happen. And we forget that they are happening. But as technology advances, we get a cleaner environment. So we need to make sure we continue to
look at Flint!
So we have a stronger environment. Yes.
Several of Trump's spokesmen made comments about any disagreement with Trump being punishable. Several of Trump's spokesmen have said that any disagreement with him will be punishable and that there will be consequences. And I just wonder, how does a congressperson discern between doing the right thing and doing something out of fear of retribution? That's more of a psychological question. And just how do you discern the right thing to do when there's that attitude or that air of you're going to get punished?
Well, first, do I look afraid? I'm not afraid. So I'm willing to challenge any president. I challenge President Obama extensively. I will challenge President Trump extensively. He may tweet at me at some point. I don't know. That might be fun. But I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried. Now, with that said, there are colleagues who are worried about it. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. When I have criticized some of the president's actions, I have had Republican colleagues come up to me afterwards and say thank you. Many of them. Very frequently. Not infrequent. Basically any time it happens. I get Republican colleagues who come up and thank me. Now, I think that many of them are afraid to speak out. They're afraid to speak out when they have a disagreement. And that's not a good place to be. Similarly, many Democrats were afraid to speak out under President Obama. Now, he hasn't, I don't think he threatened them the same way, but they absolutely did because I worked with them on a number of issues. So I'll give you a good example. On NSA surveillance, my Democratic colleagues understood that what the government was doing was wrong, but many of them were not willing to stand up to the president on that. In fact, when I offered my amendment, if you'll give me a moment here, when I offered my amendment to stop the NSA from spying on innocent Americans, the president issued a veto threat on my amendment. In fact, it was the first time he issued a veto threat on any amendment. It might have been the only time. And issued a veto threat And a lot of my Democratic colleagues who said they were with me were suddenly very nervous about it, believing that there would be some retribution if they went along with it. And we didn't get it passed. We lost by not many votes. It was 205 to 217. So this does happen in both Democratic and Republican administrations. Now, I think that Donald Trump is in many ways more threatening than President Obama, more directly threatening. More directly threatening toward, I want to be clear, more directly threatening toward people who might disagree with him. So, and I will stand up to him when I think it's appropriate. But I'm still encouraging some of my colleagues to do the right thing. Yes. I'm sorry.
About Donald Trump.
Yes.
Can you answer my question? I'm a vet. I think I deserve it.
I'm going to go here first.
Can I speak after?
Could you give me a...
I sure will. I'm sorry. He said he wasn't afraid to touch me.
Hi. So, I wanted to say, and I know it's been said before, but I'm very socially liberal, probably fiscally moderate, so we probably disagree on a lot of things, but I really think that it's admirable, and I have a great amount of respect for you that you do speak up for what you believe in, and not just whatever is popular. So, with that being said, one of the hot button, GOP things right now is the defunding of Planned Parenthood, and I know I've researched your stand. Traditionally go through Medicaid to pay for those services to like community health centers. But in most of the studies that I've read, it's something like anywhere from 2 to 5 times the caseload to like an 80% increase. So what would you offer? What are your plans to change that infrastructure to enable those health centers to take on that caseload? Because they're already servicing the entire low-income community, other than the people who are going to these centers. So what would we do for them?
So, I don't support federal funding for Planned Parenthood. I think we I'm not just picking on Planned Parenthood. For abortion providers generally, I don't support federal funding for abortion. I think we can find a way as a community to find more resources for community health centers as necessary. If there's an increase in demand, then the state of Michigan can find more resources for these community health centers to provide the services.
They can't find clean water. Give me a break.
The state of Michigan has resources. They spend their tax dollars on movies and advertising campaigns and other things. So we need to, instead we should be spending the money on water and community health. So the question is whether I support congruent plans, plans at the same time to deal with that. And yeah, I would support the state of Michigan taking the initiative to be ready to address this concern if something is signed by the president. Yeah, I think that our state legislators should be on notice. Let me go to yes, ma'am. I'll go to yes, ma'am.
Okay. The following 9 bills have been blocked by Republicans in Congress.
You got to get to the question, though, not just.
Well, your question is right here. The following bills have been blocked by Republicans in Congress. The Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act, that's for veterans. All of these are veterans bills. Health benefits and retirement pay restoration. Wounded Veterans Job Security Act. Veterans Retraining Act. The Homeless Veteran Reintegration. Disabled Veterans Home and
Job Corps Act, the Torture Veterans and Victims Relief, the Veterans Business Center Act. You yourself have voted yes in one of the national security issues that says in order to prevent defense funding from being used to implement any climate change recommendations, which has been noted as the highest national security through the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And you have voted nay in continuing appropriations for the VA and military construction and for the Zika Response Preparedness Act. And by the way, we are not a coal country, but you did vote yes to stop the war on coal. Can you tell me how you're going to fix this?
So,
These are your votes.
yes. So,
Yes, they're from the internet.
yeah,
They're your votes.
all right. So, I get it. I've been looking at the votes here. So the climate change issue in the Department of Defense bill, not appropriate.
Well,
Stop, because it's a Department of Defense bill. If you want me to answer your question, I'm happy to answer your question. So, if you let me, I'm happy to look at the. I'm looking at the ones you're. I'm looking at the ones you're citing. Well, I've never missed a vote in Congress, so.
Well, that's been on last year's list. I mean,
So,
not present is not a vote.
so I don't know the specific bill here. Stop the war on coal. I mean, I'm sure I'm against the war. I'm sure I'm against wars on coal, but I don't know the particular bill. The appropriations for VA and military construction. There was one time I voted against that because the military construction spending was too high, and we've had a waste. Well, the fact that they mixed two things together is not my fault. I mean, the leadership team.
Introduce your own bill.
So,
Bill to change that? You are allowed to propose bills as well.
So, first of all, they don't allow you to offer amendments to just anything. First of all, you can't just bring any amendment to the floor. Second of all, if they combine things into one bill, it's ridiculous to say to a member of Congress, well, you just have to look at the good parts of the bill and ignore the bad parts. So I think they should do these bills separately, one issue at a time. With all due respect, if I think that there's waste in military construction, I will vote no. I'm not going to vote for wasteful military construction. And in most cases, I have voted for the VA bill, but if I think the military construction spending's out of control, I'll vote no on it.
Thank you. I do want to thank you too for not voting this great party all the time. I don't, and I think we need thinkers. But my question, put my glasses on. Under both the Bush and Obama administrations, Congress would not address immigration reform. Mr. Trump then signs an executive order subject to broad interpretation. We don't really know what or understand it yet. Do you see Congress taking the lead on immigration, or is Congress going to continue to abdicate its responsibilities in coming up with legislation? The congressional process is where legislation should be made, and it hasn't been happening.
The executive branch is not the place to be making legislation. It wasn't that was the case under President Obama, and it's also true under President Trump. It's not the place for legislative activity. The Congress is supposed to make legislative decisions, and the president signs or vetoes. So I have always supported moving forward on some sort of immigration reform. Now, I didn't support the Senate version a few years ago. It never came to the House, but I wasn't supportive of the way they were handling it because I don't think they addressed the issue of legal immigration appropriately. And a lot of the times, you have conflicts between the two sides. You have Republicans pushing for more legal immigration, actually, and I have colleagues who have been in the trenches working on the negotiations, and they're pushing for more legal immigration. And you have Democrats who are pushing for path to citizenship, and it doesn't always line up when they try to negotiate. So what you need to do is address all of the issues in a bill or a series of bills. I would be supportive of that. I've always supported that, and we'll continue to push Congress on that. But I don't think Congress is going to move on it. So.
On any issue, with Congress doing their job, making legislation.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Congress has to. I mean, Congress has to do its job and work on legislation. So. So, I mean, so the issue is you're presumably most of you are in my district. So,
We all are!
hold on. Wait. There might be a person or two here not from my district. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. So, I'm not trying to make a statement. So, there might be a person or two here not from my district. That's okay. It's not a big deal. But the point is, you're going to have to contact other members of Congress who are not holding town halls, including Democratic members of Congress. So, you have to reach out to people. You have to reach out to the leadership teams on both sides and hold people accountable. I think making phone calls is effective. So, I think you have to try to call some of these offices to get them on board with whatever your concern is.
Voicemail's
You
full.
ever call them back?
So, I don't know, are they not answering your phone calls?
Voicemail full. We know that trick.
It is tough. I mean, when you think about members of Congress, the reason it's tough for them is because they get a lot of phone calls from constituents, and when they get some from outside the district, they have to make decisions about where to prioritize. And so we do that too. Like if we get a constituent phone call, we're going to prioritize that over someone calling from outside the district because I represent this district. So it's a challenge, but you just have to keep pushing. I mean, change is often slow. It doesn't come overnight. You just have to keep pushing with whatever your concerns are. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry if I missed people. I'm doing my best.
I actually wanted to respond to the people who shouted out, who did the ACA actually hurt? One of those would be me.
You're not alone!
I started paying premiums for an individual policy. They were at that time $493 with a $2,000 deductible. In 2015, it changed to $575 a month, $3,000 deductible. This is out of my pocket. I have an individual plan, not employer sponsored. So by the time I actually needed to enter into the medical establishment in the fall of 2016, my bank account was $20,000 lighter. And I still have that $6,500 deductible and 40% copay. It's not working. I actually enrolled in the ACA effective January 1st. Go ahead and kill it. I'll send you a thank you note. I'm not mad at you. Someday when you have nothing else to do, perhaps you can tell your constituents exactly how much money the risk corridor cost the taxpayers to the benefit of the insurance companies. I've never seen it total. It's in the billions, I'm sure.
So I don't know the answer. So that's something. I don't know if you know the answer, but I don't know the answer to that question. But thanks for your comments. I mean, it just goes back to the point I made earlier that there are a lot of diverse opinions on it, and at these town hall meetings, in particular the most recent ones, we do tend to get one perspective more strongly than the other. But I assure you that when we are hearing things from our constituents over the course of a year, on our phone calls, we hear more balanced concerns. So concerns, people who like the ACA and people who don't like the ACA and find that it's hurting them. So I encourage people to talk to their neighbors. This resolve by fighting. We have to resolve by working together. And I think we can do better than before, which is when it passed before, it was all Democrats voting for it and no Republicans. And we can decide, I mean, you can make up in your own mind which side is more at fault for that. But whatever the case, I think that is not the way to do massive legislation. I think when you make a big change to our system, you have to try to find a way to work together to get both sides on board with it, to understand the problem and to get both sides on. Because otherwise you create this political problem where one side always feels like they were left in the dark and they always have some concern about it. So
it doesn't help when the other congressman referred to the other side as scumbag.
yeah. So I don't think, to be clear, I don't think either side should refer to either side by names. Yeah. Yes. Oh, Ms. General? Conflict of interest, and there may be other ways to verify that besides taxes. But if we can't verify it any other way, then I would support that. Yes.
As I moved up into the federal government, when you get to a certain job level, you have to show your taxes. You have to, you have to report it all out on it. So there is no conflict or cost. Even if you're a GS 13 or a 14, you have to do that. So why can't he? Are you going to make him accountable to show us his taxes?
I support accountability with respect to his conflicts of interest. Now, whether that means taxes or not, I don't know. I would pursue it if that were the only way to determine. But I believe we can try to find other ways to figure out where he has conflicts of interest.
Take his
He may
word
well
like what?
have conflicts of interest. I don't know.
What are you going to do?
I will press our committee on that. I will press our committee on that. And we're quite a bit past time, but so I think we're going to get this out soon.
We're paying you.
If I'm not mistaken, you also are married to Syrian and Palestinian immigrants, and I just wanted to see what you plan on doing, or if you have any way to protect the children of Muslim immigrants to this country who have definitely seen a rise in hate crimes or racist interactions with people after the election.
I'm the son of a Palestinian refugee and these Syrian refugee. And I think that we should be a welcoming country, that we should respect people's rights, and we should provide for equal protection for everyone. So I'm not for any bullying or hate or anything like that. Now there are some things that should be handled legislatively and other things that shouldn't. Some things should be handled at the federal level and other things at the state level. Sorry. So the question is about our educational system, and that's something that should be handled at the state level. I mean, keep in mind that I'm an Arab American who grew up in this country with 2 immigrant parents. So I can understand the concerns people might have about. I went to a very Dutch school, and I was the one Arab American. I can understand the concerns people might have about not feeling welcome, although I did feel welcome at my school. So different people have different experiences, but we should always be mindful of the way people are being treated and ensure that our schools are doing a proper job to protect kids from bullying and from hate and from violence. So I think it was out. So I'm sorry. I gotta go to this guy a second. I gotta go to this guy. I'm sorry. He was waiting for me.
I'm a gun-toting, bleeding heart communist, and I have one question. one of your biggest donors. And I also saw some ties to the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. Google both those things. What I want to know is, at the beginning you said that you were for the rights of people. How about immigrants and gay rights? Because those two organizations, one that funds you pretty heavily, is pretty anti-immigration and anti-gay. Club for Growth and ALEC.
So, with ALEC, the only association I had was when I was in the State House. They asked me to be on some kind of liaison or something. I never actually did it. So I never participated in any ALEC event. So I don't know much about the group right now. As for the Club for Growth, I would not describe Club for Growth as anti-immigrant or anti-gay. I mean, they're only concerned with economic freedom. And you know, as a communist, you may disagree with economic freedom. He said he was a communist. So you may disagree. You said communist, right? So he may disagree with economic freedom, but they have not taken positions that I'm aware of on immigration or gay rights, and I've always been supportive of immigration and supportive of gay people, including gay marriage. So I voted on the transgender issue. I voted in favor of the Maloney Amendment, which was to provide that federal contractors had to have protections in place for transgender people. With that, we have to wrap it up because they're going to get. We told them 1:30. We told them 1:30. So.